is the negotiation process itself. First of all, smile. Smile and create a welcoming vibe, right? You want to communicate that, hey, look, I'm here to work with you. I'm not here to crush you, right? And I'm not here to be crushed either. So you want to go in with a nice positive energy, dominant, kind of a leader kind of energy. As you're beginning the process, you want to remind them of those past conversations that you had. So I'm not sure, some of you may came late, maybe you didn't catch this, but if you had previous conversations on what will it take for me to earn X amount of dollars, or what will it take for me to get X amount of your business, if you've had those previous conversations and you've actually built up that your value during the course of this previous salary cycle, then you're going to be starting out on a good foot, starting out with a good position, because it's just simply a question of reminding them the conversation that you had, and reminding them, if you recall, about a year ago we had a conversation. You said this, and this. I would have to do X, Y, Z, and boom, here is the evidence that I've actually achieved that. That's such a powerful argument, right? Going into any kind of negotiation, than just saying, well, I feel that I'm doing well, and very subjective, very difficult to put your finger on that. So certainly highlight your achievements and your accomplishments and your performance over the past year, the past 6 months, or in the case of a new client, if you're a business owner, then anything that you've achieved to that point, certainly related to their industry or related to their field. That would seem to be more relevant to them. For existing clients, if you're trying to upsell them, if you're trying to increase the purchase next time around, then highlight the specific past achievements for them, because that's even more compelling. That's even more, powerful from their perspective, more persuasive, because they're not just looking at, this is a good company, and I think they've actually achieved something for me. They've given me some kind of value already, right? So that makes it more compelling. And don't just assume that they know, right? Because everybody's focused on their own world and their own career and their own issues, right? So don't just assume that going into that negotiation process that they're going to know or remember everything that you've achieved. Remind them, right? Highlight that. Bring it to their attention, right? I don't know if you noticed, but about 6 months ago there was this problem and we solved it, blah, blah, blah. Oh, you did that. Oh, okay, interesting. That makes it much more compelling, right? And again, justify your ask with objective criteria and numbers. Very, very powerful. There's something about numbers specifically, as distinct from words, that is very compelling and very powerful to the human brain. It's a psychological thing. So you definitely want to use as many numbers. You don't want to go excessive, but you want to use a good amount of numbers and objective criteria. There's a great technique called mirroring. Some of you have probably heard of this. Mirroring simply means that you are kind of reflecting back to them what they're giving to you. This makes you more persuasive and it makes you more interesting. So a couple of techniques, for example, repeat their last few words. You can also repeat their words or their argument in your own words during the course of the negotiation, right? Not only does this show, it makes them feel more comfortable, right? Because you're kind of reflecting back to them what they've just given you. It shows that you are listening to them, which you should be. Yeah, absolutely essential to be listening, right? And it shows that you are kind of keeping an open mind. It's funny. I do drills and exercises a lot with my clients. I was in a coaching program, helping to run a coaching program, and some of the students were doing drills and exercises. It was like a conversation drill. And the drill was one person would say one sentence, and the other person had to respond to that and give feedback or give their opinion. And there was one student in particular who was having a really, really hard time with it. And so I said, okay, pause, hold on a second. What did he just say? And he looked at me, he's like, I don't know.
Not listening.
He didn't even listen, you see? That's the issue. See, when we're so in our heads thinking about what's the right thing to say, it's just crazy. We get so tense, we get so nervous, right? And build up this negative energy. It just kills the dynamic, kills the dialogue. And we come across as weaker. We're certainly not listening. We're not understanding them. If I don't understand your position, it's going to be very difficult and challenging for me to create a persuasive or compelling argument that you're going to be affected by, right? So I need to be listening to you, and I need to be understanding your perspective. So mirroring is a very simple technique, but it just kind of forces you to listen and pay close attention to the other person. Another technique, never disagree directly, okay? Well, look, I disagree with that, okay? Because no good, because there's an issue there. I mean, if there's a good rapport, good comfort between two people, okay, it's different. But if there's any kind of distance or anything, and oftentimes even if there is closeness between people, as soon as you say I disagree or anything to that effect, whoop, there goes the barrier, there goes the ego, right? There goes that combative, competitive dynamic, and that makes it so much more tense, and that makes it so much harder to actually come to a mutual agreement, right? So you never want to explicitly disagree with someone. Instead, you want to take a step back, and what I recommend is to reframe, okay? Reframe the situation. First of all, I'm backing up just one step, is to ask them why, right? Probe a little bit deeper, understand a little bit more. So you said no. I'm curious, why do you say that? Because from my perspective, I achieved X, Y, and Z, which seems to be in line with what we talked about a year ago. So I'm curious to hear why, like what's your justification? A lot of times they have no justification, right? They're just repeating, it's just a reflex. No, it's just like a reflex thing, right? But so if you probe a little bit deeper, first of all, they might realize in their own mind, okay, you know what? I guess my argument is kind of BS, so maybe I should be a little bit more open-minded to this. Or interestingly, they might come up with a new argument or a new issue or new challenge that you had not foreseen, right? And you need to get that out on the table. You need to be talking about that honestly and openly, because if you're not talking about it, you can't respond to it. You can't reframe it. You can't incorporate that into your proposal. Okay, so ask them why. Understand their perspective and their priorities. Understand if their position is really justified, which again, oftentimes it's not. And then reframe. It's one of the most powerful persuasion strategies you can possibly use. So the classic example I always give is a journalist asks a politician, Mr. Senator, do you believe we should send troops into the Middle East or something? And well, let me tell you what I do believe. I believe in a strong American military. I believe in an active role for America in the world. Blah, blah, blah. It's like, you didn't answer the question, right? What he's doing is reframing. So he's reframing the discussion into a completely different issue that for whatever reason he thinks is going to benefit him more. It'll be easier for him to respond to that question than to answer the specific issue of the troops in the Middle East. So politicians do it all the time, and it's very annoying and very frustrating for many of us because they're not answering the question, but there's a reason why they do it, and the reason is that it works. Okay, it's very persuasive, because if you just kind of buy into other people's frame all the time, you're letting other people control the conversation. You're letting other people to dominate the frame, right? My position is I don't want to play into your frame. I want to create my own frame. I want to play the game by my rules or play a different game altogether, right? And that's when the persuasion really starts to take hold.